Welcome to the official podcast of the National Pickleball League, where we go inside the NPL. Welcome to Everything in the Kitchen Dink, where we go inside the National Pickleball League. My name is Michael Hammer Mike Chen. I'll be one of your hosts for today's podcast, along with my co-host, Rick Ripskin Witsken, David, the Professor George, and Jen Bone Crusher Gallwas. Welcome, everyone. We have an exciting podcast. This week, we're going to talk about the upcoming draft, the second year of the NPL draft. As you know, this is our second year with 12 teams, 6 teams from the original teams from last year and 6 expansion teams for a total team of 12. And our draft is going to be happening on April 14th in Naples, Florida, at the AC Hotel. And we're excited about it. And it's going to be very, very exciting. But before we talk about the draft this year, just wanted to bring on my co-founder, Rick Witsken. Rick, last year was the first year of the draft. You know, it was very exciting with the 6 teams. What made us think about doing this draft last year?
You know, David and Jen, we were such a big part of the draft for us, and Michael, to think about those 6 OG owners and their excitement to decide who they're going to pick on their team. I just think that even though we were in our first year, we had so many talented people. Obviously, we had to have a combine last year too, Michael, and it really made sense to let these owners choose their fate last year, and boy, did they ever. Some had amazing drafts. Some seemed to grow a lot with their players. But I would say the draft for me as a co-founder was one of the most exciting parts of the league, if not right up there with the most exciting part of the league.
It's almost like fantasy football, but with real players, right? Which is exciting. And by the way, who was the number 1 pick in the draft last year? Let's just go back to memory lane.
Oh, boy. You know, Michael, when that pick of the Indy drivers came out of the hat at the combine in OKC, and Phil Cohn, Indy driver owner, picked that number 1 pick. Only by luck was I the first pick in the draft, because I'm certain if Phil wasn't number 1 and another team was, they would have been crazy not to take Beth Bellamy at number 1.
Well, anyway, congratulations on being the first overall pick of the draft last year, the first overall pick ever by the National Pickleball League. Let's bring on our other co-host, David George. Now, you were relaxed, right, going into the draft because you had won the combine. And by winning the combine, automatically you're guaranteed to be drafted, that some team be drafted. Your suspense was just not knowing what team was going to draft you, right? David, you were like sleeping, waiting, just say, who's going to draft me? You went to the draft party, and your only curiosity wasn't whether you got drafted or not, but which team? Is that how you felt?
Super chill. I was out of the room in the bar, just watching some games on television. I was not concerned about the draft at all.
Yeah, no, and he went, like we said in the earlier podcast, he went pretty early too. So it was Naples, JBB United drafted him, and congratulations to Naples JBB for doing that, and also drafted Jen Gallwas too. But Jen, your experience was probably a little different, right? Because you didn't win the combine, and you didn't know how it was going to work out. There was over 200 people that signed up for the draft last year, and we only picked about half of them, about 100 of them, right? So what was your feelings going into the draft?
I mean, like I said, the combine was so much fun that in itself, it was just a great weekend. So obviously I was very hopeful. And I felt like 80-90%, because I did talk to the owners even though I didn't win the combine, several of the owners would talk to me after and asked if they drafted me, would I be available to play all the events. So I felt pretty confident, but you never know. There's other people that didn't go to the combine that have much higher ratings. I was only 1 year into pickles, so I was really excited. I had no idea. But I was very hopeful. It was a really exciting night.
Were you thinking you'd be drafted by Indy since you were closer to Indy, or were you surprised being drafted by Naples?
I mean, I know Bob the longest, so I was kind of hopeful. I was going to go with Bob. I did talk to Phil a lot, and I talked to Rick. I talked to Boca a lot. So I feel like I talked to those 3 owners. The other teams I didn't get a chance to talk to as much. at the combine, but I thought I had like three team chances.
Yeah, 3 teams.
Yeah, exactly. So
How about you, David? What was your thinking? Which team?
Well, my most vivid memory of the whole season was actually at the draft party. All right, they did them in alphabetical order. We didn't know where we're drafted, but Bob drafted Jen and myself kind of back to back. At least that's how it was revealed, because they did Jen and I was trying to capture it on social media, and then they called my name, and I still have the social media where I'm holding the phone while I'm giving Bob a hug. And because I didn't really know what to do. He just drafted my name right afterwards. And then my second most vivid memory was after the draft, where we're just relaxing, all right, with Bob, with Jen, with Rick afterwards. And Rick gave me one of his classic Ripskin compliments. He's like, "Oh, I really wanted to draft you, but I didn't want to draft you that high." So I assume like maybe Rick would have got me in a round or two after Bob did.
Wow.
Michael, I need to interject here because
Please do.
David and Jen were high on the radar of the Indy drivers. As you probably realized, I assisted Phil Cohn in the draft, and Phil really wanted both of you. And for that, we're going to coin a nickname for Bob, Sniper Stroman, because Bob sniped both these players out from under the Indy drivers. And David, you did go a little sooner than we thought. And just for the record, because
we keep reminding David that.
Yeah. And Gallwas and George both start with a G. That's why you were announced right by each other. Jen was not on the same level as you as far as where she was drafted. But wow. Jen, my word, she outplayed her spot. And, the truth is we also had a Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, and he was the driver. His name was Matt Troyer. He was the last guy.
Yeah.
And Matt's a great friend of mine. He was an incredible contributor to the Indy drivers. And so he was far from Mr. Irrelevant.
Oh, did he know he was Mr. Irrelevant, or he's going to find this out in this podcast here?
No, he's not.
I had to tell Matt he was irrelevant once it was public knowledge. Oh, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And his very supportive wife that was at every event, won the dance contest for Indy.
What took you so long to draft him? He should have been drafted way earlier than that. So, but
you know what? This is important strategy, Michael, for what we're talking about today, too, is that there are some diamonds in the rough that owners do know about, but think nobody else knows about them. I knew, and Phil knew, nobody knew who Matt Troyer was on the highest level. And so we could afford to wait to draft Matt, because otherwise he wouldn't have been drafted.
Oh, that's true. So that's, what the listeners this year, I think, want to talk about is not last year. So there was a quick shot down memory lane. Sorry, David, you had your minute of joy, about last year being drafted well. But they want to hear about this year's draft, because we're in 2024 now. And I just pulled up the stats on how many people registered for the draft. 362 people registered for the draft. Can you believe that? Oh. Unfortunately, we only can draft 168 of them, 168. So less than 50% will get drafted. And, we have some signed players. Obviously, the top players are signed, and we have people from last year. So if I do the math, there's probably about 60 people that probably are going to be drafted just because they're a known brand in the Champion Pro community. There's probably 40, not all 40, I don't think, Rick, from last year will get drafted, right? Some may not get drafted back, unfortunately. We'd love to have them all back, but I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm thinking there's like 90 people that probably are locked, and there's probably another 80 spots, right, for the remainder, 80 spots for like 280 people. So you do the math on that, that's really like 30%, which is tough, right? But because we had a lot of great people at the combine, but for the 30% that do get drafted, they would be thrilled. And for the 70% that's remaining don't get drafted, I just hope that they had a great experience at the combine, and if they didn't come to the combine, that they do come to the combine next year, so that all the team owners can see how good they are. But I'm just thrilled that we had 362 people sign up for the draft.
And these players are so unique. And right now the phrase that keeps going through my head is, so you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance.
Because everybody's got a chance right now, David.
Yeah, there's a chance. And David's not guaranteed either. So, he could be on the outside looking in, if some owner just forgets about David, or we leave him off the cheat sheet, because we do give a cheat sheet to the owners on, how everyone ranks. And so if there's a clerical error, there's a chance, although I think he will get drafted. There's a chance that if there's a clerical error, you actually may not get drafted, David. So maybe you'll be a little bit more nervous this year since there's not a guaranteed spot for you this year, David.
Thanks for the pep talk.
To be clear, David is a signed player. And even though a signed player does not mean you're guaranteed,
correct,
it's about a 99% likelihood. And let's talk about differentiators for a second, Michael. There's something that happened at the last combine that I hadn't seen yet, and I really liked it. And he was a guy from up in your neck of the woods. He actually gave all the owners a handout with his resume and explained in a well-written letter why he felt like he needed to be drafted. So what I feel like in this time between combine and draft is differentiations. And I think some of the emails I've seen and some of the hand-delivered at combine resumes and reasons they'd love to play in our league has been a really cool thing to watch.
Well, what about some of the social media posts? I mean, Carolyn Weed, I am laughing every day. She's counting down the days, and every day she has a different social media post about 19, 18, 17, right? I'm laughing my head off. And she's a very good player, but, for me, she's gotten my attention as, if I was a team owner that may want to draft her, not only for her talent, but for entertainment, for fun, for creativity, as an example. And Christian Spackman, another one, right, who's really done some, podcasts about the National Pickleball League, right? Those are just two examples of people that have really shown their care and their desire and their passion to play in the National Pickleball League this year. So,
you could also say that our signed players are really appreciative. Obviously, we had John Hedberg and Scott Johnson travel to the combine and take notes. And, Mary Helen Atkins' dad was in her NPL drafted jersey at the last tournament. And that was 2 weekends ago in Miami. So how cool is it to see a signed player's dad giving the love there at that individual tournament? That was awesome.
It's going to be so exciting. But you know what? Instead of the four of us just talking about ourselves, let's bring on someone that was a draftee last year, but this year is actually playing the GM and will be a vital player as part of the Oklahoma City Punishers. So with that, I would love to welcome our friend, Mark Milner.
Yay!
Hey, welcome,
What
Mark.
an esteemed group I am in. Love it.
Well, Mark, first of all, thank you for joining us. Like I said, you were a draftee last year, and then you're owner this year, doing your homework on who to draft for OKC as their general manager as well. But before we talk about this year, were you nervous about getting drafted? Like, you didn't go to the combine, right? And I didn't know who you were. Maybe Rick knew who you were, but you kind of took a chance of not going to the combine and getting drafted. What did it feel like when draft day came and announcements were coming?
Oh, it was absolutely brutal. I was on a spring break with my family. We're hiking Zion, pulling off the highway, thinking it was going to be a quick little reveal. And that quick little reveal, what was it, an hour, 2 hours? I'm sitting off the side of the freeway saying, come on, get on with it. Be quiet, Rick. Let's go. Share the team. And of course, it one by one, each team's going through their roster and is coming to the final final team, which is OKC. And at least I wasn't Brent Waiwaiole, because Brent, his last name is Waiwaiole. He was the very last player of last year's league to be revealed that he's in it. So at least I was Milner about halfway in the group of OKC last year. But yes, it was pretty darn stressful, but also exciting too. And just, you guys talk about how exciting it is as one of the more exciting MPL days. The energy, even thousands of miles away there, it was phenomenal to be a part of. So, yes, so it was a little nerve-wracking.
Well, I'm glad you was a little nervous, but you did a great job. You brought OKC to, I think, second in the regular season. And if it wasn't Beth Bellamy getting hurt for the playoffs, you guys were one of the favorites to win the overall championship as well. And so you learned a lot being a player, coach, general manager. And now this year, you have, I believe, the number 3 pick in the draft. Is that correct? We do a snake draft, but in the first round, you have the number 3 pick. Is that the number correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So not a lot of people are listening to this podcast yet because it's only like our 3rd or 4th week. So just give us, maybe just 18, and nobody that cares. But so just tell us. I'm just curious. It's coming up soon. The draft on April 14th. So just tell us who are you looking at in mind for the 3rd pick? Is it Rick? Is it Beth? Is it
that's
Dane?
a good choice. That's a good choice. Dane's a good choice. Jaime is a good choice. So but one thing David doesn't have to be worried about.
I think Jaime is gone by the time you pick. How's that?
I do too.
How's that? Is my guess.
What a thrill to have both of them last year. I know. So yes. So hey, I think all those names you just mentioned is a strong chance to be on OKC. So. Are you wanting more details than that?
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Let's say
Mark's not going to now.
You're not
Don't
going to
do it,
come
Mark.
on. Oh man, I was going to say I just want to know. Let's say Beth and Rick are both available at 3.
Oh, okay. Don't do this to me. No, you didn't bring me on the show.
Who are you picking, Beth or Rick at number 3? And you're not revealing it. Okay. Well, you're going to have to reveal
it. Connection problem. I didn't hear that. So.
Well, you're going to have to reveal it. When the day comes, you're going to have to reveal it.
Michael, you're going to have to be quiet for a second. Mark, first of all, it's really fun to go down memory lane. I remember talking to you at that tournament 2 years ago, telling you, hey, something amazing is going to happen. And, I want to thank you for being on the show and believing in us. I want to thank you for being a drafted player. You were more than represented for OKC last year. I'm super stoked you're a GM. And, quite frankly, you're probably one of the more outspoken GMs now on our Zoom calls, but you're a smart guy, so you deserve to be heard. We might have to use the mute button on you, but I do love you, man. You're a great, great dude. And, also on your OKC Punishers, I have to tell you, you had a guy named, I believe, wasn't Brian Gelston on your team? And he was, his draft videotape that he took when he was at home with his family, and they were all celebrating, and it was like the coolest thing because you could tell his family was in awe that Brian Gelston was drafted to a pro franchise league, and he had an incredible record too in the league. But it's just funny for me to perceive you with your family for 2 hours on the side of a road just so you could hear about you. Did you feel a little narcissistic about that, or did you feel like this is right where y'all needed to be?
I gave him some warning. That it was draft day. So draft reveal day. So yes, there was no. So are those people who are going to chime in and listen? Just set yourself enough time. Just don't think it's going to be a 10-minute little reveal party.
That's right. It's going to be a couple hours, so you're going to have to book time on the evening of April 14th if you want to listen to this, find out if you got drafted or not. But Mark, let's be serious for a second, right? These people want to play in the NPL. They really care about it. And a lot of people want to understand what it takes to be drafted, right? And we saw the combine. They're all great players. They're all 4-5 plus. What's going to make you decide on drafting a certain player over another player? Is it going to be because of a local flavor? Are you going to draft them because they're close to OKC? Are you going to draft them because they're talented, but they have a great social media skill, or they're great, they're fun? What are some of the secret sauce to having a player being drafted other than just being a great pickleball player?
Yes to all those questions. Yeah, I think you just nailed it. What makes great professional teams? What makes the Super Bowl winning team? Is it just the quarterback, or did Mahomes have all these little nuggets around him? And that's what makes the teams. It makes I think you got to be cohesive, and you have to have kind of the same goals, and you have to have the mindset. You have to have the character. And each team owner has kind of what they're looking for. And so one team owner might be strictly more on the skill level, and maybe more duper, and maybe more skill results, or maybe another team owner are going to be building off of who they met at the combine. So you're going to get different flavors of each team because of that. So that's my guess. But
so I'll give it two examples. David George is very talented on his resets. He's one of the best resetters in the game. He hit it hard and all of a sudden he resets in the kitchen. And then you got Jen Bone Crusher Gallwas. There's a reason she's Bone Crusher, because she hits the ball so hard and overpowers me. Are you looking for a certain type of player strategy, a soft game player? Are you looking for a power player? Are you looking for someone that's really good at mixed or men's because they got to play both, or women's? Like, what are you looking for when you're looking for types of players? Anything specific?
I think higher in the draft picks, you're looking for the combination of all that. You have to be able to reset, but you also got to be able to dictate points. So, but as you get through the rounds, there's only so many Beth Bellamy's and Rick Witskens out there that have all the full bag of all the tricks. So I think
good
as
answer.
you get farther, I think as you get farther down, you start looking at some of your team that you drafted, and you start thinking, okay, yeah, this person is that resetter, and that will complement our first guy that we just chose. And so you do kind of look at those kind of skill sets to be able to complement each other for sure. Especially, I think coming in mixed doubles, can some of these gals show that they're going to be targeted, and can they handle some heat? The Bone Crusher obviously threw it back at you, so that's what you're kind of looking for, some gals. But so I think you're going to complement your team coming down. It's just like, you don't want a whole team of just left-handed players, and you don't want a whole team of just left side players. So you have to. I think a lot of things go in consideration.
What about the local regional thing? Do you take that into factor? Does it matter they come from New York City or Washington D.C. or Seattle, or does it matter they come close to OKC? Last year you had a bunch of people from OKC. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, I think you do want to have some flavor of that, and I think other teams will do that as well. I don't know. I still live out in the Northwest, and we had Russell Wilson of the Seahawks forever, but Russell Wilson wasn't from Washington State, so you don't necessarily have to worry about that so much in the professional sport realm, but it definitely helps in your local community, pickleball community, have that one player that everybody knows is from your region. So. But it's not necessary. So your professionals representing the city that drafted. Yeah, we had no problem last year chanting out OKC all season long, and that was kind of fun because I had no affiliation to OKC last year, but just after being drafted and being a part of with Carol and Doug, it was like, I'm a part of OKC now. So it's very easy to get to dive yourself into that environment. So do you have to live there? I don't think so.
And they're great owners, right? Doug and Carol, they're a special husband and wife ownership team that's really inspired a lot of players. I've heard so much great feedback from all the players at OKC about their ownership and your leadership,
boss lady,
general manager.
It's important to note Mark is a co-owner GM of the team, so our listeners know that obviously he has to be drafted by OKC, and with that being the case, there will be an association with Mark's level as to which round pick they lose for Mark Milner to be the draft pick of that round. So I just wanted all of our listeners to know, because we have multiple players that are in ownership for GM positions that will be drafted by that team at a set round to lose that pick.
So you're not losing sleep, Mark, about being drafted this year, in other words.
No, that was the best part about getting part of the ownership team. I'm like, hey, I got some job security. But I also think I'm going to obviously not going to have to earn that spot as just much as anything else. So, yeah. So no, it is a different feeling for sure going in.
Mark, let me follow up about your draft position. You're not quite in the Bob or Vinay realm where you're first or last, but you will get one of the top picks, one of the top players with that third pick, but then you have to wait until like 22nd to get another pick. So does that factor into your strategy at all?
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's, I talked to Carol about this before we actually did. I said, hey, if we get a pick, were you willing to, kind of trade that pick? Because there's advantages to 11 and 12 because they boom, boom, they get that. When you're 1, 2, or 3, you're down into the 20s now, at 22, 23, 24 to get your second round. Um, but it's still exciting. I mean, even if I throw out 20 names, 24 names, there's so much talent in this league and so many good men and women of good character and amazing players that we're going to be at the end of the day just kind of smiling all the way through because there's so many good players in this league. So, I don't, there's advantages to being, I think, that 11th and 12th because you can turn around and get that next. So you could form your men's team or your mixed team or your women's team right away and have that.
Yeah.
Whereas
are you trading out, or so are you thinking about doing a trade before the draft?
Carol really believes that it was destined for her to have number 3. So
yes. So you're probably keeping 3, and then we'll find out on draft day whether you picked Rick or Beth or someone else, right? So because it's going to be revealed on April 14th, so you might not tell us now, but the pick's going to be the pick, right?
Hold tight. That's right.
Stay tuned.
All right.
Mark, you are the prototypical guy that at least as I knew from the beginning, you were a really good singles player, a great singles player, and you kind of came in through the singles, and then you evolved into a really good doubles and mixed doubles player. I know you're a great coach. You work with, my friend Tyson, and you're a really good friend, Tyson. Do you have any recommendation for those singles players that, I feel like there's a few diamonds in the rough when you think of a Gonzalo Pension and a Laura Charles who are more singles oriented that really have taken to their doubles game. It's been fun for me to watch them evolve. What would you recommend to the singles players that want to step up into the doubles and mixed doubles world of the NPL?
Yeah, it's something that I've encouraged some other friends who are kind of just focusing on their singles, and I'm like, you should be playing doubles. Well, we'll talk. One of our owners is, DK. I told DK 3 years ago. I'm like, hey, let's play some doubles. Both of him were on the singles scene pretty early, and I noticed he was bouncing tournaments pretty quickly. He could fit 2 singles tournaments in the same weekend. He could do a Thursday and then an APP on Sunday or something. So he's flying all around the country doing all the singles. And I was really working him a couple of years ago. But you're absolutely right, Rick. It's a different game from singles to doubles. And hey, the journey was real to figure out the doubles and to still be progressing with that.
Yeah.
But I do see some really good, Alex Stein. We had a last year OKC team. We had a lot of good singles players. We had Lance Gowert, we had Alex Simon, we had Chen, and we had myself, pretty good singles players. And Jaime had to kind of scratch his head and going, okay, guys, it's okay to drop once in a while, and it's okay to slow things down a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the other exciting thing about this league is when you're drafting 2, you're not thinking about your end all on weekend 1. It's weekend 6 is when the championship's riding on it on weekend 6. So you could be taking more of this this talented player that's really athletic.
That's hurt right now, but will be available for championship weekend, right? Is that where you're going, Mark, with that one? I know of a top player that's kind of hurt, and so if you're peaking for the playoffs, I think there might be a player I have to recommend to you, Mark, for that one.
I never thought about that one.
No, you never did. By the way, it's going to be tougher this year. You had Jaime and Beth as your top men and women, and that's a strong, men and women combination. This year, you're going to have to work harder because your second pick, like David said, is number 22. So it's going to be exciting. But I don't know, any last parting words, Mark, as we come up to draft day shortly on April 14th. Any thoughts you want to share with the players, with your other team owners? Any just parting words, since you've been both a draftee as well as now you're an owner that will be drafting people?
I just enjoy the journey. If for everyone who's not drafted this year, if you get it next year, enjoy the journey to get there, because once you are a part of this league, and there's quite a few players, OKC, that are not turning up this year. And so, but some ways is, how can you outdo what we had? And it was so incredible. So I would just encourage, in our pickleball games anyway, we're always on this journey of trying to get better. And so enjoy every moment of it. If you do get drafted, enjoy the party and the time that we get together. And then if you're not working out as well, is like, put your eggs in the basket, because it's all about weekend number 6. So just enjoy the journey. It would be my parting thoughts.
Great. Well, thank you, Mark. Jen, David, Rick, I can't wait till the draft reveal party coming up. It's going to be an exciting party. There's going to be a lot of celebrations. I know there's going to be a few heartbreaks too. And what Mark said is great. Just keep working at it. This is a journey and it's not over. And there's always next year. And we're going to expand the teams again next year. So there'll be more people that'll be in our draft next year. But I just want to thank the 362 people that submitted for the draft, right? And believing in us and have hope. And I would just say, for the people that can get drafted, congratulations. For the people that won't get drafted, don't give up hope, right? Because this is for all of you. And so with that, I'd like to thank Mark as our guest this week. Good luck on draft day. Jen, David, I would wish you luck as well. Rick, I don't think you need as much luck as the three of us, because the three of us are going to be keeping our fingers crossed that we get drafted at some point. And Rick, we'll just find out who drafts you this year. I think Indy, being number 11, is probably not going to have you this year. I think you're going to go way before that. So we'll see what new team you're on.
Remember, there's trades.
Wheeling and dealing.
Right. That's a good point. So that still could happen, but there's still a chance.
I think Phil Cohen's right now thinking about or watching that game show, Let's Make a Deal. That's what I think he's thinking.
All right. Well, with that, I would like to thank again David, the Professor George, Jen, Bone Crusher Gallwas, Rick, the Witsken, and Mark Milner. We got to come up with a nickname for you this year. And I'm Michael Hammer Mike Chen. Thank you. And stay tuned to Everything and the Kitchen Dink, when we'll be back and talk about all the players that got drafted in the next couple weeks. Thanks so much. Please join us as the National Pickleball League's second annual draft happens on Sunday, April 14th, where we will be on Facebook and Instagram Live. So you wouldn't want to miss it. Thank you for tuning in to the official podcast of the National Pickleball League. Please stay tuned, as we will be back soon with our next episode as we go inside the NPL.